This is The Process Shot. I'm Michael. I've never been happier to be single, and I thank this movie for that, though not for much else. Deep Water is a new erotic thriller from director Adrian Lyne that has little eroticism and even less thrills. It takes a look at the loveless open marriage between Vic and Melinda, the latter of whom has taken up other partners and flaunted this publicly. Vic ends up telling her latest lover that he is responsible for the death and disappearance of her previous lover, raising questions among his community even after the body is found. When Melinda's next lover is found drowned in a swimming pool, tensions continue to rise when she accuses Vic of murder. It also raises the interest of Dawn, a neighbor and crime writer who offers to help her, leading Vic to... well, the thing is that he doesn't do all too much right away. Despite the general idea at hand here, the movie doesn't do too much to keep things moving at a reasonable pace. It's a slow burn in one sense, but it stays slow across almost the whole runtime, and almost entirely removes any tension to be had, which is already a rarity among what feel like several dozen scenes of people talking, eating, or partying. Even when there are scenes that are clearly made to ramp up the action, they either fizzle out soon after, or lead nowhere in particular. Either way, they are few and far between, those other scenes, coming off as if they're only there to remind people that movies are supposed to have things happen. As for the characters, while they may look like people who live upper middle class lives, that's about as much development as we get for the first hour or so, save of course for Vic and Melinda. Everybody else is pretty much a one-note caricature, or just doesn't have any depth outside of whatever's implied through dialogue. As for our leading characters, the first half of the movie wasn't even over and done with before I dedicated the rest of it to hoping that they would kill each other and then themselves. I'm fairly positive that the most development we get is that Vic takes care of snails. Snails are alright, I guess, but it's a trait that doesn't do much for the story. Outside of the story, the rest of the movie doesn't have much in its defense either. Deep Water seems pretty content with being boring in its technical construction, with very little in its visuals that bring out any sense of a creative style or directorial vision. Cinematography does make use of various angles and framing choices, but rarely does it feel creative or even appropriate in a few cases. Any scenes which do have interesting shot composition or editing choices seem almost incidental, as if they weren't designed to help emphasize the emotional state of a character, but just made everything look pretty cool. Sure, it works a few times, but it also feels a bit inconsistent since the majority of the film takes a practical approach to this instead. If anything is consistent, it's the gray and murky look of the film's settings, which may contrast the glitzy upper-class lives of its characters, but doesn't work when it seems more like they just decided not to put any color balancing into the movie. It really doesn't feel like they put much effort into the movie at all, or at least they didn't try to make sure they had a tight and functional end product. I'd bet that if they made a few cuts here and there, paced things a bit faster, and had a tighter focus, you'd probably have, actually, you'd still need some tension, so maybe the movie just needs a whole rewrite. Deep Water, Adrian Lyne, 2022. 1.5 stars. I wouldn't recommend seeing it. That's it for this review. If you liked it, leave a like. If you have something to add, leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Come to think of it, I didn't even talk about how little the actual relationship plays into the story. That's just how empty it was in the end, I suppose. Well, the story, I mean. And the relationship.